Okay, so today I made another scrap metal motorcycle. This one is not a wall hanging, it's a freestanding sculpture. I don't know what you want to call it, but anyway, it turned out okay. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, including I forgot to turn the microphone on, so there's no audio in the whole video. If this makes it up on YouTube, enjoy. If you do enjoy, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave a comment letting me know what you thought about it. And if you like this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe.
Alright, so I decided I'm going to do a voiceover on this. So what you see me doing here is this. I'm going to put together the engine, which is two old spark plugs with the insulators broke off and cleaned up pretty well, and that's the cylinders, and then the crankcase is just a hex nut. A quick note, this is all done, almost all the footage you're going to see is done at 1.5 times speed to make it a little less boring and not quite so long. I started off with over 8 hours of footage that I had to whittle down because I filmed this completely wrong. I filmed this over 1.5 years ago, and rather than staging shots, because of my tendency to get wrapped up in my project and forget to stage the shots and lose key bits of the story, I thought, oh, I'll just film the whole thing and edit it later. That was a mistake for two reasons. One, I didn't get any audio because I didn't notice that the mic was turned off. And since it was all one continuous shot, there was no time for me to discover it and reshoot anything. Also, the editing turned out to be a nightmare. So, here I'm working on the front end. You can see I'm using a lug nut for the headlight, and then some thin, rusty old, I think it's old welding rod that's being used for the fork tubes. But anyway, to edit this 8 hours of footage down on my old computer with my old editing software just turned into a nightmare, and I just gave up. But luckily I saved the footage, and I just discovered it the other day and decided I should edit this up. Now that I have a better computer and better editing software, I thought it'd be a good chance to really give that editing software a workout. Here I'm going to make the backbone for my frame. Found a heavier piece of, I think it's a long 1/4 inch bolt, and then some sort of U-bolt that I had laying in my scrap. But editing this together, even on the faster computer, took me around, I don't know, probably 12, 16 hours of sitting there editing, and that doesn't include all this voiceover stuff. So, yeah, quite the ordeal. Here you can see me grabbing the piece that's going to be the bottom of the frame, the down tube and the lower tube on the frame. And what other things you don't see are me searching for a long time for the proper piece. That was a lot of the footage, was me in the corner or off camera searching for parts. You also don't see most of my massaging the parts into the right shape or cleaning them up to get all the rust off so that they're weldable. Here you will see one example. This is for the lower frame to go around the rear wheel. I couldn't find a piece that was ready made, so I found this little piece of rod, same basic stuff I used for the front forks, and then I just bend it around in this old piece of scrap to create that. And you can see right now it's rusty. Check, make sure it's the right shape. And the next shot you'll see of it, it's all cleaned up and ready to weld. So that's the magic of video. You're going to see me do a lot of tacking of the pieces in place. Just a couple tack welds, and then what you don't see is a lot of massaging, reworking that goes on in between, and then you'll see you'll see a little bit of that, but not much of it. And then once I have it in the shape I want, you will see me go back through and finalize all the welds. What you see here is I'm putting a upright under where behind the engine mounting location and under the seat area. Like on a real motorcycle frame, there's a vertical upright in there. Now you're going to see a lot of little weld shots as I finish out welding the frame. It's actually quite a strong assembly once it's all done. It's pretty scale strength compared to a motorcycle frame. And unfortunately, I couldn't show you everything. You wouldn't want to see everything anyway, but I had to pick and choose and cut, and you don't get any good close-ups because of the way I shot it. I apologize for that. I'm learning my lessons as I go, and hopefully I'll be able to learn from this and improve and take a little more time and set up shots in the future. I hope to get back out there and do some more work, but I have to wait till the weather's good so I can pull everything out and really clean things out, because over the course of the winter, mice invaded and they got in my toolbox and created a mess. So yeah, that's going to be fun. Anyway, this is just me finishing welding the frame. All right. I'll give you a shot of what it looks like now. And there's the engine assembly. Now it's time to mate the two. Put the engine in there where I want it. Give it a quick tack weld. And then I'll do some inspection and adjusting to get it centered, get it angled properly as needed. And then here I'm gonna weld it's just another piece of that rod I'm welding in between the two front fork tubes to hold the wheel in place. Then later I'll weld the wheel to that rod so that it's firm and not wobbling about. And I'm not a welding expert, so you'll see some examples of not the best welding here, but in the end it turned out pretty good. Just giving it a look, making sure things are lined up, which they're really not, but I'll tweak that later. This is a staple over the top of the rear wheel that I'm going to tack in place. That is used for the Sissy Bar support. And the easiest way to do it was to clamp it to the rear wheel, tack it to the rear wheel since they don't turn anyway, and then weld that here in a second to the motorcycle frame. And that holds the rear wheel in place and keeps the Sissy Bar in place. So here I am. I'm going to tack it to the back corner of the frame. And yeah, it's pretty smoky because that thing, even though I tried to clean it off, that started off as a galvanized. So luckily I'm outdoors and I'm just holding my breath for the very short time it takes to tack that in place. And you do not want to breathe the smoke from galvanized metal. It will make you sick. I'm reinforcing the front end. Checking the proportions, realizing I didn't finish welding in the engine, so we're going to do that. I put it in pretty good with welds on the front and back of the engine on both sides of the frame. And looking at, see if I'm happy with the way that's shaping out. Now this piece, the Sissy Bar here, is actually the piece that inspired this whole build. I saw this was a tool that came in some piece of furniture you're supposed to assemble, and I just saw it and thought it looked like a Sissy Bar on a motorcycle. So I kind of just built this whole thing so I could use that piece. And here I'm not quite happy with the angle I ended up with, so I actually tweak it. There was a lot of this in the build, you just don't see it. This is the only one that I showed, just changing that angle slightly. Okay, now I'm going to work on exhaust. This is a stainless steel U-bolt that I cut in half and trimmed down, and it turned into dual exhaust. So the first thing is get them at the right angle and the right position, and I'm just going to tack weld the two together, and then I can massage a little more and line them up with where I want, and then tack weld on the front. And then flip it over, weld it to the frame on the back side, and it's pretty well set in place like that. Giving it a look, seeing if I'm happy with it, and then give you a look. And you can see it's not completely straight yet. The front wheel's a little crooked, but that'll all get massaged out. I'll show you some pictures at the end of this. So now we need handlebars. So these are two old used double-headed nails, and just cut the tips off to the length I wanted. I'm welding them together in the center, and then I'll flip them over, do some more welding, completely fill it in so that they become one solid piece. Here I am to just fill in the other side, and then I'll unclamp it, and I'll cut out the part where I take it over and grind it to get it back to round. And there was a little tweaking of the shape to get the pullback, just a touch of pullback. And now I'm going to tack handlebars in place. And once I like it, I've reviewed it, thinks it looked good, so we will put a little better welds on there. So now we have handlebars. Now we need a tank. So this is actually a piece of square stock that I cut some wedge-shaped pieces off. It was a square tubing, 1-inch square tubing, cut some wedge-shaped pieces off, then tack weld those together Massaged it to get a gap in the bottom so that I could slip that over the frame tube like that. And then we'll tack that in place. Yeah, I broke the front wheel loose. You can see it flopping. I fixed that off camera, well, in a shot that I didn't show because I already showed welding the front wheel, so I figured I didn't need to show it multiple times. But there was rework involved. There's a hole in the finger of my glove that got a piece of metal splatter in. Take a look at that, see if I like it. Now I need some way to stand it up, so through the magic of video, here is an already shaped and cleaned up kickstand. And there we have it. And here's a close-up of it at this point. I'll just give you a quick walk around. This isn't completely finished, but it's about 90%. It was my ending spot for that day, so I thought I would document what I had done. I was pretty proud of it. Alright, so here I'm making the seat pan. So it's a piece of stainless, some sort of tag off of something. It had printing on it and whatnot, but just mark it off. Cut it out with some tin snips. It was all, before I started cutting, you gotta bend it to shape. And after it's all bent to shape, I decided on this one to I wanted to practice my TIG welding, so I decided to TIG weld this one in place. And this was actually, I think, my second try at TIG welding it down because I screwed up the first time. So I've got it clamped at the front with a little tiny C-clamp. Tack weld the back in place. Take the clamp off and tack weld the front. And actually I finish welded the front and then I go back and finish weld the back. That's the front. Now I'll just finish off the back to make sure it's on there good and secure. Then after this, what you don't see is I go out and I clean it all up with a wire brush. I actually use my oxyacetylene torch to heat it up and oxidize a little bit and discolor any of the shiny bits because I didn't want an obvious contrast between the cleaned up spots I'd used to weld on and the old nasty parts, and then I clear coated it. And so here's the finished product. My wife loves this thing. I brought it home and she immediately claimed it, and it's been sitting in our living room ever since. I'm not allowed to sell it or get rid of it. So there it is. And then here I'll show you, I entered it in a scrap metal art show here locally with a couple other of my pieces. And here's two of my pieces there. And there's one more coming up. It's a different one there's that I made, which is kind of a flower thing made out of railroad spikes. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one.